Welcome to Where Are They Now? We reach into the archives of Lenape, Shawnee, Cherokee, and Seneca High Schools and invite selected alumni to share memories and fill us in on their career paths after commencement. Since Lenape's first graduating class in 1961, Shawnee's in 1972, Cherokee's in 1978, and Seneca's in 2005, over 64,000 individuals have received diplomas from these four schools. Here now is your host, John Donaldson.
Welcome to another episode of Where Are They Now? Today we will be reconnecting with alum from Shawnee's class of 2000, Amy Williams. Amy is a coastal ecologist and adjunct professor at 3 local community colleges. Thanks for joining us today, Amy.
Thank you.
So, class of 2000 from Shawnee. Let's jump back in time here and talk about, you had numerous activities you were involved with. I'll let you start with some of the ones that you know are at the top of your list.
Oh, wow. Shawnee High School, I mean, a long time ago for me, I feel like, but I was involved, probably the most active stuff that I was involved in with was the student government. Working with Mr. Bacon, he kind of spearheaded a lot of the activities involved with student government, and one of the biggest ones was the toy drive that he did every year, and he was so passionate about it. It was just an amazing experience. We spent months collecting these toys and cleaning them and getting them ready for people who were less fortunate. What we did was we would have people come in and collect the toys for all of these kids that were less fortunate, and it was just such a rewarding experience to work so hard for someone else in the community. So we did that. I did that for 2 years, which was really great.
Sounds like a great project that I'm pretty sure they still do to this day.
I hope they still do.
Yeah. You're also involved in Math League?
Yes.
Did you just enjoy math?
I enjoyed math, and it was one of those activities that not that many people participated in. My best friend, Jamie Cull, now Cull Galumba, she joined it, and she wanted me to do it too. So it was kind of a winter activity. We were tennis players and couldn't really play tennis that much in the winter. So we joined Math League and went out and competed in the Math League competitions. And I don't know that I did very good, but it was very, it was just fun. It was just something extra to do.
Something different to do, yeah.
Yeah, we made up T-shirts. They said we put the fun in function, and I still have that T-shirt today.
You were also involved on the yearbook?
Yes, I did the technical aspect of the yearbook where we actually set up the back pages, all the pictures of like the kids and the pictures that parents would send in of when people were babies and all those fun pictures. And we did that. It was before the digital era, so it was physical cropping on sheets of graph paper and physically using slides and cropping all the pictures. So it took a lot of time, and I don't think it always was very appreciated in terms of when people were always, thinking about the yearbook. But it was a fun
A lot went on behind the scenes.
Yeah, lots of behind the scenes stuff.
So it's funny you worked on the yearbook, because when I asked you about your quotes and things you wrote in the yearbook, you didn't remember.
No, I didn't.
So a couple of things you wrote in there was working with animals and working with people.
Yes.
So how's that gone?
When I was in high school more and part of college, I started working at a wildlife refuge. So I got to work with animals, and now I've probably moved more towards working with people to teach them about animals. So
both things have panned
both
out.
things, yeah, both things have worked in their own way.
You also had another really good experience with Mr. Bacon and Mr. Matthews on a trip you took over spring break. Talk about the trip.
I had the best experience. Junior year and senior year, went to Europe with Mr. Bacon, Mr. Matthews. We went to Germany, Austria, and Italy the first year, and the second year we went to England, Scotland, and what was the last? England, Scotland, and not Spain. I want to say Spain. I can't remember the last place that we went to.
Somewhere in Europe.
We went to Europe, and just a great experience. My first time traveling out of the country, not traveling with my parents, having a little bit of freedom, but still the protection of my teachers watching us, setting up the trips, getting to go to different places, seeing all of these things that you only hear about in movies and things like that, and got to go in the Eiffel Tower and just spending a whole week with students of my own age from they really only took sophomores, juniors, and seniors, but just spending that whole week together and doing silly things and just bonding and experiencing this whole new world that you don't get when you just stay in New Jersey. So it was just wonderful. I loved it.
Yeah, at that age, very impactful.
Very impactful. It spawned me on to keep going and continuing to travel as much as I could throughout the rest of my, well, up until today, I guess.
Yeah, which you will revisit again when you get to college, because that impacted the choice you made in college. Mr. Matthews, there was a project that you worked on in his class, an artwork project.
Yeah, he was my history teacher, and I wasn't that great at history. But one of the things that I found that he did was try and relate things to our lives. And one thing that he did was he had all of us pick an artist, and I got Thomas Moran. And he drew images of Yellowstone. And his images actually were what spawned Yellowstone into becoming a national park. And so I just remember putting that project together and relating that history to the environment and to stuff that I was interested in. And that connection was really strong for me, because I'm not that into artwork and things like that, but I still remember Thomas Moran to this day.
Well, that's great that it left that kind of impact on you and get you that involved in the project, to find that connection that for you. So you graduate Shawnee in 2000, and you go on to the Cook College at Rutgers State University, and you get your degree in natural resource management. Talk about getting that degree and what you wanted to do with that degree when you went.
Natural resource management was a degree that took me into the science fields, but in a different way, not in just biology and chemistry, but really looking at the environment, looking at things like trees and birds and animals and how we use them, manage them, how philosophies affect the way that we see the world. And I just was drawn to it. I was just drawn to all the concepts that I learned with it. Still wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I was told, if you like this class dendrology, which no one even knows what dendrology means. It means the study of trees.
I now know.
Now you know. They said, if you like dendrology, then you're in the right major. And dendrology was literally walking around the woods looking at trees. And so you had a 4-hour class doing that. Loved it. It was just awesome. So I figured I was in the right major. So I stayed and worked on that degree. I also got my teaching certificate in life sciences, so 6th through 12th grade life sciences, so a lot of science, in order to kind of have like a backup, because I really wasn't sure what direction I wanted to go in. I also was able to just learn a lot about the environment, and then when I started to travel more, I got to learn a lot of aspects that are different but similar all across the world. So wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. I ended up working for the U.S. Forest Service one summer teaching environmental education, and got to learn hands-on how to deal with kids who are very excited about science. But you have to keep that enthusiasm going, but still have some structure with them, because they can walk all over you if you don't let them.
What age group were you working with?
We worked with lots of different age groups, mainly like 4-H camps and YMCA camps. So we would go to those camps or go to those, like a summer school, and teach the kids about an hour-long lesson. And it was always fun for them. It was a break. It was a new person coming in, but you definitely had to set your ground and, like stay by this line. And it was really, really fun. And then I got more interested in the environmental education field of it. So started to take more and more classes in environmental education, and looking at doing something with teaching students. I also had they have a undergraduate thesis program called the G.H. Cook, and I was able to do my undergraduate thesis at the Rutgers Marine Science Field Station in Tuckerton. I did studies looking at how seaweed was basically affecting the arthropods on the beach, so basically the bugs on the beach.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of get a science background along with the teaching background.
Okay. So while you're at Rutgers, the traveling that you became passionate about in high school, you presented with another opportunity to go abroad.
Yes.
Talk about your semester abroad.
My semester abroad was just amazing. I always knew I wanted to go to Australia. I don't know why. It was just something about down under, such a different world. And when I had applied to Rutgers, I looked up their study abroad program. So I knew going into it that I wanted to go to Australia. So I signed up and I got to go to Australia my junior year of Rutgers. Went in our winter, so their summer, which was great because I left snow here and got there and it was warm and 90 degrees and just perfect. Studied at the University of Queensland. I lived in Brisbane. It was just a totally different experience. I got to live in a city which I've never lived in cities before. Coming from Tabernacle, it's just a very rural area, and Rutgers, really, where I lived on Rutgers wasn't city-like. So I lived in a city and took public transportation everywhere. Got to see this whole, different world where people were just really friendly in cities, which never expect that for me. But one of the biggest things was one of my friends that I met there. She was a scuba diver, and her and another friend, they wanted me to get scuba certified, and I was scared of sharks, absolutely petrified. I mean, I've never seen Jaws, never watched any of that type of stuff. So I convinced myself I would scuba dive once. I was like, I'm going to scuba dive once, and if I hate it, I never have to do it again. And I just got in the water and saw the fish and saw like the coral and was just mesmerized. So that just started my whole life being more and more geared toward the ocean. Before that, I think I liked more like terrestrial animals and terrestrial ecosystems, but then with that really was like, oh, I'm ready to do stuff with the ocean.
So, still afraid of sharks?
No, I respect them very much. I'm actually now at the point in my scuba diving career that I really, really want to see a shark. I've seen small sharks, and I actually once saw a great white from the boat, but I have not been under the water where I've seen one of the big sharks.
Right.
So
Have you seen Jaws?
No, I've not.
Still haven't seen Jaws?
No,
But Shark Week?
never. No, not all the Shark Week.
All right. Yeah, don't watch Shark Week.
Yeah,
Not a
no.
good idea. So you graduate in 2005 from the Cook College of Rutgers, and you end up at Texas A&M, and you're there for quite a while, getting your master's and your doctorate. So how did you end up at Texas A&M? What made you decide to go there?
It was funding. I was looking for jobs after I graduated with my BS, and on one of the job boards they posted funding for a master's student who also needed to teach and do GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. And so I applied for it, and they were looking for someone to, again, look at seaweed. They have this seaweed called sargassum down there. It's this thick brown seaweed. It washes in certain times of the year. Then the time it washes in corresponds with the tourism season. And I mean, it's probably this high off of the ground, and it can be like 10 feet wide. So it's taking up a big span of the beach. So it becomes a really big issue because people don't want to sit on a beach that has a lot of seaweed, and if there is any trash in there, it gets wrapped into there, and when it starts to decay, it starts to smell really bad. So there are a lot of issues down there about the seaweed because they would take the big tractors and rake up the seaweed. And there were other people because hurricanes are prone in that area, and so people were wondering, is this affecting our erosion of our beaches? Is seaweed actually a natural protectant? So I took the G.H. Cook thesis that I had written about the arthropods and the seaweed, which at the time I thought we had a lot of seaweed on the New Jersey coast until I went down there. I took that, I sent it to the advisor who posted this position, and he hired me. So I got to go to school, and I got paid for it. So can't really beat that.
Your studies here at Rutgers really paid off.
Yes, they did. The coastal area is a really small niche, kind of, that there are a lot of people who work on the land, there's a lot of people who work in the water, but actually working on that environment that connects the two, there's not that many scientists out there.
So what was the result of your work there? Did they ever come up with a conclusion as to whether was it causing erosion? What did you find out about it?
We actually found when you rake the seaweed in Texas that we didn't see a change in erosion from a raked beach and an unraked beach, which was surprising to me because I thought we would. But I also did studies looking at whether or not seaweed could be used as a natural fertilizer, and that came out to be a positive result. So a lot of times what they would do is to keep the sand and the seaweed on the beach, they would take the seaweed and they would rake it back to the dune line and just leave it in a big pile there, and sand would cover over it.
Compost almost.
Yeah. And what I would see is there'd be a lot of vegetation growing where these piles of seaweed were, and then the dunes to the north or east and west of them, they wouldn't have much vegetation growth on it. So that's more what I focused on later on, was looking at could sargassum be a fertilizer for the dunes if you spread it out and actually set it up so that it was, now instead of being on the front of the beach and being a pain to everyone, now it could be on the back of the beach and actually help them protect their
Did you ever imagine when you were at Shawnee that you'd know so much about seaweed?
No, I still can't imagine that I know this much about seaweed.
Although it's interesting though. So you end up leaving Texas A&M in 2010 with your doctorate in coastal management.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And from there, you end up back in New Jersey at Long Beach Island.
Yes.
So tell us what you ended up coming back here to do.
Well, I came back here because at the time I was dating someone back here, so I moved back and went down to Long Beach Island, and just I've always wanted to live in Long Beach Island. Always growing up, I wanted to live at the beach, and even though I was doing research in Texas, I was living 3 hours from the beach, so it was really hard for me. So I came back here and started looking for jobs, looking for some teaching positions or research positions. I really wasn't sure where I wanted to go, and I started applying around New Jersey area, but I was still keeping my mind open, still possible to move, possibility I could move someplace else. I started working some summer jobs in LBI. I mean, that's what you do when you're at the shore town. You get a summer job until something picks up. So met my boss who ran a coffee shop, and he just asked me if I wanted to work at a coffee shop, and I love coffee, so I was like, sure, I'll get, no problem, I'll come work at a coffee shop. Kind of, after 5 years of grad school, I was ready to do something a little bit, not so taxing, I guess, with my brain, but
fringe benefits were good.
Oh yeah, I know, I got way too addicted to lattes and all that type of stuff. And then I got hired that next year as an adjunct professor at Gloucester County College. So I got to get back into teaching earth science, which was really exciting for me because I was combining both worlds, both the teaching and the science. I had never taught at college. I'd been a teaching assistant in college classes before, but I never ran my whole class. So it was really a new experience to go into a college classroom and get to just design my whole class. So got to start working there, and then later on the next year I got hired at Ocean County College and Burlington County College to teach similar classes.
Okay, so you're currently an adjunct at all three.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On top of that, you're involved in some organizations that relate to what you're really passionate about. So talk about them and what they're what you're doing with them.
So living at the coast, I knew there were some organizations down in LBI that were kind of the spearheads of looking at the environment and coastal issues. One of the biggest ones in Long Beach Island is called Alliance for a Living Ocean. So I approached them at one of the festivals we had one summer and ended up starting to volunteer for them. And I got involved. I became a board member on their executive board, and over time I ended up being the vice president, and now I'm currently the volunteer president at the organization. We are a small organization. We've been around since 1987, and we started on LBI, and while we focus on the Barnegat Bay watershed, we keep a lot of our activities down in Long Beach Island just because that's where our membership base is. Alliance for Living Ocean started because there was a lot of pollutants in the water. Beaches were being closed in the 1980s, and citizens came together and said, we want to fix this. How can we fix this? What can we do to make a change? And really started pushing for legislature and trying to get our beaches clean again. Living at the beach, the health of the ocean, the health of the beaches is critical for us to be able to survive down there. It's important for the environment, it's important for human health, and it's important for our tourism network. So our whole economy is based on the beach. So if we don't have our beaches open, we're not going to be able to have businesses down there. So Alliance for Living Ocean has had a great history, a really big legacy on Long Beach Island. And when I stepped into it as vice president, we'd been having little struggles with financial financial concerns. People kind of, you know, when the beaches are clean, they kind of forget that you still, it's a process to keep them clean, and you still need to keep working on it even though things seem pretty good. So I became vice president, and then I became president about a month before Hurricane Sandy hit. When Hurricane Sandy hit, Alliance for a Living Ocean became one of the major organizations involved in the relief effort. And since then, we've kind of had this rejuvenation of people just caring about the ocean, caring about the bays, caring about our landscape, caring about everything along the whole entire barrier island of Long Beach Island.
So in a way, a negative became a positive?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, for us, for what we did, and we always had this mindset, but we just had more of that positive interaction with the community.
More to the forefront for everybody realizing how important it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, on top of that, it impacted you, you know, your living situation.
Yes.
You were living there.
I was living in an upstairs apartment of a house that got flooded in Long Beach Island. So I was displaced, and I'm still, it's over a year since the storm hit. I'm still in the process of getting back into what I would call my own home. Moved back to my parents in Tabernacle for a little bit, moved to a rental space with a friend of mine who was also displaced, so I moved in with her and her son, and just to split costs and try and actually find, it was hard to even find a physical location that still had availability. So we were able to move to Manahawkin, which is right over the bridge from Long Beach Island, but still the difference is, until you live in both places, it's hard to explain the difference. And then my friend and I, we actually were able to buy a duplex this year. So I will be living upstairs, she'll be living downstairs of a duplex in Ship Bottom, New Jersey. So we're really excited for that, but it was gutted from the storm, so it's still in the construction process, so we haven't moved into it yet.
So you weren't the only one affected. You have a friend that was following you around, Taylor Ham.
Yes.
Tell us who Taylor Ham is.
Taylor Ham is my golden doodle, which is a golden retriever mixed with a poodle. She's 70 pounds of love and happiness, and she keeps me going all the time because, you know, you just wake up to that cute little doggy face in your every day, and you know, she wants to go out and walk, and she grew up in Long Beach Island, so she has always been on the beach. She knows where the beach is. I mean, you take her out of the car and she will jet towards the beach. And
she's
so,
probably anxious to get back.
Yeah, when I finally got to take her back on the island and get her on the beach, she just went crazy after the storm. She was so excited and ran around for 4 hours, and then she was tired. She just went to sleep.
So there's another project that, you know, as the result of Hurricane Sandy is a film documentary, was it Land, Falling Eyes of Sandy?
Landfall, the Eyes of Sandy.
Landfall, Eyes of Sandy, okay. Okay.
Yes, there was actually a director, he's from Rutgers, and he wanted to do a documentary after Hurricane Sandy hit. He joined up with another lady, Corrine Ruff, who actually lives in Long Beach Island. So they started to put together this documentary. There was a citizen named Andy Warren who he'd been taking pictures. He's one of the first responders, so he was on the island during the major impact of the storm. He was taking pictures and started putting them on social media, and they saw these pictures and they wanted to tell the story of what's happening with Hurricane Sandy, what's going on to the people in Long Beach Island. So Drew Pearson, first time I met him was last February. He was at some events taking some footage and asked to do an interview with me, and it was an event, it was called Let's Get Sandy. It was a 5K, and I'd just gotten off the course, and he said, I need to do an interview with you right now. I have to go somewhere else. So I was still kind of red from the run, and I had Taylor Ham with me, and so he did an interview with me, and I talked about Alliance for a Living Ocean, our relief effort. And of course, Taylor was pulling on my leash, so he got her in the video too, so she gets a little cameo in Landfall. But throughout the next 6 months, Drew became kind of one of us in our community. He came to a lot of our events. He got to know the proprietors of Jetty, which is an apparel company that was our main spearhead in LBI. They were the main spearhead of the relief effort. They organized so many of the activities. They changed their apparel company into a community action relief effort center. They created a t-shirt that had a New Jersey state symbol, and it was a Sandy relief. Their slogan was Unite and Rebuild. They became the co-producers of Landfall, The Eyes of Sandy. So they, throughout the whole entire kind of 6 months to a year, Drew was taking footage of everything that we were doing as a community. And we really came together, groups that maybe never knew each other and just kind of generally like maybe said hi once in a while. These groups became family. They came together, they started to hang out, and they started to come up with plans. And they're kind of like, just do it. Like, just whatever needs to be done, someone's house needs to get gutted, let's do that. Let's start working on, you know, cleaning up this area, let's just go and do it. Actually, another Shawnee graduate, Joe Mangino, him and his wife, they live in Beach Haven West, and Joe and another teacher from Beach Haven West started an organization called START, which stands for Stafford Residents and Teachers Together. So they started that program. They were doing house gutting, house cleanups, everything on the mainland, while there was another group doing it on the island until we could kind of connect together. And so with that activity, we ended up actually having a 1,000-person cleanup on Thanksgiving weekend. And so all of these groups just came together, and Drew got to capture that on footage.
This is all part of the documentary.
Yeah, he captured it all. And
the great thing about this documentary is that if somebody wants to purchase a copy, all of the proceeds are going back to the relief.
Yes, they are. And they're all going back to the relief effort through Jetty, and you know, it's on landfallfilms.com. You can purchase it there. It just became an award-winning film, 2013 Video of the Year through Eastern Surf magazine, which is pretty, I think it's impressive. I know I'm biased because, you know, Taylor Hamm's in the movie, but
so you're famous now here and there.
Yes.
So you're all over the place. Yeah. So your career's really going to take off after all this.
I hope so.
Well, Amy, it's been awesome having you here today. Really interesting. My final question for you is, would you please tell us or give our students some advice, you know, that are in high school now? What advice would you give them?
My biggest advice for them would just be get involved with whatever your passion is. There's so many things going on in the world right now that you can get involved in a volunteering way, that you can just cling on to whatever you care about. And it might be something that involves humans, it might be something that involves your community, it might be something with animals, it might be something completely different than that, but just get involved, volunteer, and start to make those connections in your community that will allow you to have experiences that you can bring to the table when you do go out and try and get a job that is a full-time job or a paid job. Because if you can be responsible enough to do a job that's all volunteer work, not getting paid for, then that'll transfer over into your work ethic in your career.
Great advice. Amy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
We've been speaking with Amy Williams, a coastal ecologist and adjunct professor and a member of Shawnee's class of 2000. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us again next time for more alumni interviews on Where Are They Now?